What's up guys, it's Gone, and today we'll be doing my 2022 MLB mock draft along with an MLB comparison for the top 30 picks. Like last year, there's no no-brainer number 1 overall pick, but instead 3 to 4 elite options who can all go number 1 overall. Personally, this is more exciting this way, as it creates even more possible options for how the draft can break down. This draft is also unique as it consists of many high school players in the top 10, which is usually uncommon as college players usually go higher. Furthermore, we also see many legacy players like Drew Jones, who is Andrew Jones' son, and Jackson Holliday, who is the son of Matt Holliday. Unlike last year, I am making this mock draft before the combine and the end of the 2022 college baseball season. Any comparisons are subject to change given any sudden drastic developments such as an injury. This mock draft is by no means a ranking system of any kind, but my prediction of who is going to be drafted where. Before we get on to the video, could you guys please hit the like and subscribe button. Currently, only 3% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so if y'all do, not only would it help me grow my channel, but it also encourages me to create more videos like this for you guys. And without further ado, let's get on to the video. The Baltimore Orioles hold the first overall pick with an abysmal 52-win and 110-loss season. However, the Orioles also like to draft players who they can most likely sign for below slot value in order to save some money for value picks in the second, third, and compensatory rounds. Combine that with the fact that the Orioles also like to draft college players, and I have them getting the best college player available in shortstop Brooks Lee out of Cal Poly. Brooks Lee is pretty MLB ready, hitting .364, slugging .651 with an on-base percentage of .471 early in the Cape Cod lead this summer. What is also encouraging is the fact that he is using wooden bats, so the transition to professional baseball would be smoother. The knock on Brooks Lee though is his fielding, as he's a below average defender at shortstop. However, he is athletic enough to play corner outfield or second base in the big leagues. He kind of reminds me of Ketel Marte as a utility guy with a great bat who can play decent defense almost anywhere on the infield and outfield. Next up, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks, who shared an equally bad record with the Orioles with a 52-win and 110-loss record, but lost in the tiebreaker. However, they sit in a good spot at number 2 in that they can pick an elite player no matter who the Orioles go after. With the Orioles picking Lee, the D-backs have the tough decision in Drew Jones or Elijah Green. Thus, I have them getting the best player available in Drew Jones, the son of MLB All-Star Andrew Jones. Drew is a 5-tool player with the capability of being an elite defender on the field who can also hit for power and steal bases at an elite rate. In the large outfield such as Chase Field, Drew Jones becomes ever more valuable, especially considering the entire NL West has large outfielders. Drew from the right-handed side reminds me of a combination of Ronald Acuna Jr. with better fielding as a player who can easily challenge for a 30-30 or even possibly a 40-40 season. With many scouts considering Drew Jones and Elijah Green as 1A and 1B of sorts, it is almost a certainty that if Drew Jones goes off at 2 and Elijah Green is still on the board, then he would go to the Rangers at 3. Elijah Green shares a similar repertoire to Drew Jones as a right-handed outfielder with some incredibly good speed which translates to Gold Glove caliber defense in the outfield. Scouts say that he's got a better arm than Drew, but that comes with his bat being less developed. It seems likely that Drew is more polished and would probably make the majors before Elijah, considering equal circumstances. But the upside is still there, and the fielding and power provides a good base for Elijah Green. Right now, Green holds a comparison to Byron Buxton as a 5-tool player with some elite speed that translates into stellar base stealing and fielding on the outfield. Pittsburgh is cooking up something special with some elite young talents in Ke'Bryan Hayes, O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, and Lover Paguro. With 3 of the 4 players being infielders, it seems likely that they'll have their infield set for the next decade. Therefore, I have them selecting outfielder / third baseman Jacob Berry out of LSU. Coming out of college, Berry is more MLB ready than many other prospects seen around him, and therefore fits the Pirates' timeline more in my opinion. Berry is a very solid hitter who can hit for contact, hit extra base hits, and hit for power. The fielding is something to be desired, but he can hold his own in a corner outfield position or play DH when necessary. As a switch hitter, Berry draws comparisons to Jose Ramirez as a guy who rakes from both sides of the plate and can play third base at a passable level. Unlike Pittsburgh, the Nationals don't really have an obvious timetable for any sort of rebuild to contention, so they will just select the best player available in Tamar Johnson, who may be the best pure hitter in the entire draft. He has some elite bat-to-ball skills which translates to easy power, whether that means for extra base hits or home runs. He plays shortstop and second base, but he can really play anywhere due to some raw athleticism. There's no position in which he would be a great fit, but he is more than likely to be a passable defender and is by no means a liability at any position. Although he has never played first base, he reminds me a lot of Freddie Freeman from the left-handed side as a disciplined left-handed power threat with the ability to hit the ball to all sides. The Marlins are looking to get some quality batters as soon as possible with their elite pitching prospects looking to make and contribute to the majors very soon. Therefore, they are needing to get some quality batters, and general manager Kim Ng lets to get those in free agency who hit for power like Jorge Soler and Jesus Aguilar. Although I have no clue if that means anything for the draft, I feel like Texas Tech's Jace Jung fits pretty well with the Marlins' strategy for hitting. He's projected to hit 300 with 30 home runs and would overall be a nice complement to Jazz as a player who could drive him in again and again and again for years to come. Combine that with the fact that the Marlins have elite young pitching and they could be dangerous within a few years. With some elite hitting from the left-handed side, combined with suspect fielding, and I compare him to Max Muncy, although hopefully one who starts hitting again. The Chicago Cubs have a history of selecting college bats with their early picks, so I have them following that pattern by selecting outfielder Gavin Cross from Virginia Tech. Cross may not have the highest upside out of all the players in this draft, but he has a high floor and has easily developed fast in a short period of time, jumping from an almost unheard of prospect coming out of high school to a potential top 10 pick. He's a pure lefty who can play corner outfield as well as first base at a decent level and hit for some good power along with contact. He's an athletic runner who can steal you some bases, but he's more of a speed guy and is not a liability. He can be a diet Joey Votto as a solid all-around hitter with some great plate discipline and bat-to-ball skills, who plays some solid to good defense at first base. The Minnesota Twins would be thrilled to find Jackson Holliday down at number 8 overall and would happily take him at number 8. Holliday is a legacy of the son of former All-Star Matt Holliday. Jackson is one of the best hitters in his class. He's a strong, athletic guy who has some high baseball IQ and plate discipline, which makes him a great, well-rounded hitter overall who can hit for some great power. As a solid left-handed hitting infielder with some high baseball IQ, he reminds me of Ryan McMahon. Although he's listed as a shortstop, Carlos Correa and former number 1 overall pick Royce Lewis seem to have the shortstop position locked up, so Holliday can play second or third once he hits the major league team for the Minnesota Twins. Within the Royals' new management, they tend to favor college players over any other type recently, and it happens to work out, as the best player available in college batter Kevin Perrotta out of Georgia Tech is the first one off the board. He's extremely athletic and plays with an average to below average catcher, but he can be moved to corner infield or outfield. He has some great swing mechanics, which leads to him driving the ball with power to all fields, which leads to an extra base machine. He compares to Salvador Perez as a great hitting catcher with suspect defense and pitch framing, and he should take the place of the catcher after Perez eases into the DH position, and pitch framing shouldn't really matter soon with robot umps incoming. One thing that the Colorado Rockies have lacked throughout their entire franchise is a franchise catcher which can command the pitching rotation in a treacherous ballpark, and that takes advantage of that ballpark at the plate. Hopefully for them, that changes with the selection of Daniel Susick out of Arizona, so he gets to stay in the West and is used to the high altitude coming out of Northern California. Unlike Kevin Perrotta, who's also a catcher and was drafted a pick earlier, Susick is a solid catcher with an arm to throw out many would-be base stealers and is surprisingly athletic for his size. He has a large frame at 6'4" and he's 218 pounds, so he is strong enough to get the bat on the ball and handle it with power, and his numbers would be magnified by Coors Field. Susick has the ability to hit for contact and a surprising pop, which reminds me of the Dodgers' current catcher in Will Smith. One rare thing in this draft is the lack of quality arms in the early rounds of the draft. In fact, in this mock draft, a pitcher has yet to go off the board. However, this changes with the New York Mets selecting starting pitcher Dylan Lesko out of Buford High School. Lesko is definitely the best pitcher in this draft, posting video game numbers throughout his entire high school career, posting a .35 ERA and almost twice as many strikeouts per innings pitched. He simply was levels above the competition in high school, with a fastball that tops 97 with some good sink and a changeup that sits 10 miles per hour or less with some heavy sink. He also consists of a curveball, which can give hitters a decent look, and he has a good control over all of them. Although I hope he can maintain a starter, he can be a lights-out reliever to the likes of Jett Williams. There are some concerns that he may not sign due to his commitment to Vanderbilt, but the Mets have a ton of signing money with 2 firsts and a compensation round pick in the early rounds. The Detroit Tigers now jump at the opportunity to take the last of the elite college batters with the 12th pick and Chase DeLauter. At 6'4" and 235 pounds, he simply outmuscles pitchers in college, but will need to refine some of the holes in his swing if he wants to thrive in the majors. However, his sheer raw power and bat speed simply provide a good foundation that any general manager dreams to get. He's a projected middle-of-the-order bat that provides high matchup problems from the left-handed side, as he can hit 30 to 40 home runs and hopefully keep his batting average out of liability status, but his sheer power makes up for this. He reminds me of a bigger Kyle Schwarber as a guy who can mash from the middle or the top of the order and hit for both power and extra base hits alike. The Los Angeles Angels need some quality starting pitchers and fast, with their window opening up as soon as this year. So they select probably the best college starter available and right-handed pitcher Gabriel Hughes out of Gonzaga. He has a large frame at 6'4", meaning he can generate some easy power on his fastball and changeups. He currently sits in the mid to low 90s, but as he adds some more strength to his frame, he can easily earn some more velocity and sit in the high 90s and possibly touch triple digits with his slider and curveball. Unlike Lesko, I like Hughes' ability to throw strikes consistently and not rely on the strikeout to get his outs, so I believe he can stay as a starter, and he reminds me of current Angels pitcher Noah Syndergaard. The Mets drafted a high school pitcher with their first pick, so it makes sense for them to focus on a college hitter this time with their second pick, and they select slugging corner outfielder Jordan Beck out of Tennessee. Like DeLauter, he is a large guy at 6'3" and simply overpowers pitchers at the college level, but he also seems to be more developed than DeLauter, as he does not simply rely on his power to make up for holes in his swing. He may not have the highest ceiling out of all the prospects on the board, but he is certainly major league ready, and it wouldn't be surprising for him to be in Double or AAA by 2023 and the majors shortly after, maybe in 2024. With his power from the right-handed side, scouts draw parallels to Hunter Renfroe. Halfway through now, and the San Diego Padres, who do like to select rangy outfielders that provide excellent defense and good bat-to-ball skills, so they select Henry Bottle out of Palo Alto High School in Northern California. He's got some incredible speed and athleticism to play a good center field, but an elite corner outfield. As for bat-to-ball skills, he's got some solid attributes when it comes to making contact. It's usually solid and can go for extra base hits and homers, but there is some swing and miss in his game. However, for many high school players that share his skill set, it is not uncommon, and with the Padres' excellent player development team, it should be okay. He reminds me of Lorenzo Cain with his speed to burn the base paths and be an excellent fielder, and his ability to make solid contact consistently. Now on to 16, where we have the Cleveland Guardians, and they have a bevy of young position players and pitching prospects alike, so they would probably just go for best player available here. Jett Williams models the mold of many Guardians' current players in their farm system as an athletic guy with good fielding and some wheels to burn around the bases. Williams is also strong enough to get the bat on the ball when the game speeds up on him, and it should be an ideal leadoff hitter. Despite many people seeing his frame at only 5'8" and assuming he can't hit for power, he's surprisingly strong and can hit 15 to 20 home runs from middle infield position. Due to his height and sneaky pop from a middle infield position, he reminds me of Jose Altuve. The lack of starting pitchers being taken off the board in the early picks benefits the Phillies in that they can now take the second best high school pitcher available in Brock Porter. Porter has the best fastball in this entire draft with a four-seam fastball that sits in the mid to high 90s and can touch triple digits on occasion. And this is by far his most used pitch, which he uses to just straight up overpower hitters in high school to the tune of a .56 ERA in 62 innings. His best secondary pitch is his changeup, and if it weren't for Dylan Lesko's changeup, he might be in the conversation for having the best changeup in the game in this draft class as well as the best fastball. He also has a low slider and a changeup which we will throw on occasion to make hitters think even more. With his big frame and high velocity arsenal, he reminds me of Rays starting pitcher Shane McCallaghan. Here comes the run on starting pitchers, and the Cincinnati Reds select Jackson Ferris out of IMG Academy, who comes from the same high school as Elijah Green. At 6'4", many scouts see the left-hander throwing a tick or two higher than his current 92 to 95 mile per hour range on his fastball, with that same consistent high spin that generates swings and misses. He has a wipeout 12-6 curveball as well, which can draw swings and misses when he's on his game, and a changeup to boot. One issue with Jackson Ferris, however, is his command, as when he's not on his game, he can have some long innings and generate some hard contact due to his unorthodox delivery. However, the potential is definitely there, and due to his command, he can pan out to be like Alex Wood. The Oakland Athletics now make the decision to select back-to-back left-handed high school pitchers with Braxton Berrios out of American Heritage in Florida, which already consists of some big leaders like Eric Hosmer and Tristan Casas, but Berrios will try to be the first pitcher to make it. He's got a fastball that sits in the mid to high 90s and a slider that sits in the low 80s, and sweeps across the zone, making left-on-left matchups a pain. Lastly, he's got a changeup which mimics his fastball to a T. My comparison to him is Clayton Kershaw. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be as good as Clayton Kershaw, but I'm seeing a lot of parallels in the repertoire. Comparing that to what I think he could pan out to be, due to his pitch repertoire, I think he can be a lot like Justin Steele, Cubs starting pitcher. Now going on to pick 20, and the world champion Atlanta Braves take a risk on Connor Prelip out of Alabama, who would be going in the top 5 and potentially number 1 overall if it wasn't for his Tommy John surgery last May. Before his surgery, he had a fastball which sits in the mid-90s and a slider that sits in the high 80s with swings and misses galore. He also had a changeup, which was his field pitch and were most unhittable when he had all 3 pitches going for him. I'm worried about his career as a starter as he's coming off a pretty major arm injury, so I'm going to have to project him as a reliever, and a nasty one in fact, in Brewers ace Josh Hader out of the bullpen. The Mariners have a plan going throughout the past decade of selecting college players, but they bucked that trend last year by selecting Henry Ford out of North Cobb High School, but he was pretty good value for them, so I expect them to stick back to their original plan of drafting collegiate talent. Therefore, they select Blake Tidwell out of Tennessee. Like many other pitchers in this draft, Tidwell is a big guy at 6'4", 207 pounds, meaning he can easily generate velocity on his fastball, which he throws with an over-the-top motion. Right now, he has almost the entire kitchen sink, with a slider, changeup, and curveball, which all pan out to be decent secondary pitches. However, Tidwell needs to work on his command, especially on his secondary pitches, which can get off his game sometimes, and then become over-reliant on that fastball. Due to this, I doubt he can stick it as a starter, and then he would become a reliever, and my comparison would be Garrett Whitlock of Boston. I like Cam Collier going to the St. Louis Cardinals, and I feel like he can excel if he gets drafted there. He's a decent athlete with the ability to steal you a couple bases, but he is by no means a speed demon. He is strong enough to get the bat on the ball and consistently throw in the low 90s. Therefore, he could fit well at third base, but if that doesn't fit well, he can be moved to a corner outfield position. Therefore, he is good at squaring pitches up and driving them to all fields. He could easily pan out to be your prototypical third baseman that consistently squares up balls and hit many of them out of the park while driving in runs. He reminds me of Jose Ramirez, except he only hits from the left-handed side as a guy who consistently barrels up the baseball with a short, compact swing. I would like to think that the Blue Jays would be going after some arms after losing Robbie Ray and having many of their pitchers north of 30, so they select Carson Wizzenhunt out of East Carolina. Many scouts draw parallels to left-hander Jordan Wicks, who was drafted by the Cubs in last year's draft. While he doesn't have one pitch that is completely dominating, he has a great combination of pitches which are all above average. His fastball, curveball, and slider and changeup all have repeatable deliveries, and he pounds that zone very well. His best weapon is his changeup, which sits in the low 80s and has a lot of late drop. My player comp is Hyunjin Ryu, due to his good command of all of his pitches from the left-handed side. The Boston Red Sox now jump at the opportunity to take the last of the 1B tier of high school hitters and Cole Jung out of North Allegheny. Jung is your prototypical shortstop from the early 2010s as a guy who can get good bat-to-ball skills and athleticism, whose power translates more into extra base hits than it does with home runs. However, as a left-handed hitter who synergizes well with Fenway and that short porch in right field, he's a very selective hitter and shows good command of the strike zone, but seems overmatched by high-velocity pitchers with deceptive deliveries. However, due to his merely average arm, many scouts see him playing second base in the long run, which has him drawing comps to Mariners slugger Adam Frazier. Staying in the American League East, and we have the New York Yankees who select defensive standout Logan Tanner out of Mississippi State. Tanner was once a pitcher who topped out at 96 miles per hour, and ever since switching to catcher, he's been a phenomenon behind the plate, throwing out would-be base stealers at a rate well above the league average. Tanner is strong enough to get the bat to some good velocity and drive it out of the park, and his power to drive the ball to all fields from the right-handed side of the plate. Scouts project him to hit 20 to 25 home runs from behind the plate, and draws walks when needed. My MLB comparison for him is Mitch Garver as a powerful, defensive-minded catcher. The Chicago White Sox have one of the worst farm systems in the league, so they should be going for some high upside players, and one of these is Noah Schultz, a high school left-handed pitcher who stands out at 6'9" and draws comparisons to Randy Johnson. Like Randy Johnson, he throws a fastball and slider which dart across the plate when he's on. He needs to add more to his frame in order to draw more velocity, as he currently only sits in the low 90s. Therefore, he has trouble with his command and could be correlated to an inconsistent delivery. A strong commitment to Vanderbilt could also be quelled by the fact that he gets drafted in-state, but it is a risk to draft him and he will most likely go for above slot value, but the potential strictly due to his frame is there. Like the Chicago White Sox, the Milwaukee Brewers have one of the worst farm systems in the league, so it wouldn't hurt to swing for the fences in hopes of a generational player. So they select Cole Phillips, a right-hander out of Bourne High School in Texas. He has a fastball which consistently sits in triple digits before getting Tommy John surgery, and a slider that darts off the plate that is almost unhittable to righties. However, as shown before, he blew out his elbow, and there is a concern about his injury history. Furthermore, his command wasn't the greatest to begin with, and with a year off of pitching, he might have done more harm than good. Nevertheless, the fastball, which sits in the triple digits at 18, is nothing to scoff at. I'd like to think he would be a reliever in the major leagues with his mainly two-pitch arsenal and injury history, so I'd compare him to Ryan Presley. This is the Houston Astros' first-round pick ever since the cheating scandal that had been revealed. So, they get a good player in Jud Fabian, who was recently drafted in the second round by the Red Sox just a year prior. Judd is an incredibly strong corner outfielder who should hit 20 to 30 home runs in any given season, with capable defense as an athletic runner. There are some concerns about his strikeout rate this season, but he has managed to cut that down to a manageable number. If he is capable of making consistent contact, then he could be a dangerous paired with his strength, but right now he's like a Fermil Reyes or Jorge Soler guy, as one who has light tower power but can never keep that average above a 240 for an extended period of time. One of the storylines of this year's draft is where Tamar Johnson is going to go. You have to think that with his injury history, he's going to be lower than last year at 10, but still, being a former top 10 pick, I can't see him making it out of the first round. So therefore, he goes to maybe the best situation possible in the Tampa Bay Rays at pick number 29. Kumar, the son of former NFL defensive lineman Tracy Rocker, is a big guy standing at 6'5" and 245 pounds. Rocker has an above-average fastball, curveball, and slider, which all have above-average spin rates, and his four-seam velocity sits at a range of 93 to 96 miles per hour. However, his control is spotty on his otherwise perfect pitch repertoire and can allow him to get wild when his velocity is down to get hit around often. This has led to some blowout starts at Vanderbilt, which has caused him to fall down even lower. If he can get his control under wraps, his ceiling is Justin Verlander, however. And lastly, at pick 30, the San Francisco Giants select the son of former All-Star Carl Crawford and Justin Crawford, who comes from Bishop Gorman High School in Nevada. Crawford is a burner on the base paths and can play Gold Glove caliber center field, which pairs well in Oracle Park's large outfield and can also burn on the base paths. Currently, he is more of a slap hitter than a guy who barrels up the baseball, but he's been in baseball his whole life and knows how to adapt when necessary. He can put a little bit more strength on his 6'3" frame. He can easily become a 5-tool player in center field, but right now he's missing that consistent contact and power. From the left-hand side, he reminds me of Jarrod Dyson as a light-hitting center fielder with speed for days. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, if you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe. This video took a really long time as you have to cover like 30 different players and look at players who you may have never heard before, as well as look at film to break down like different MLB comps. I'm now going to focus a lot on the trade deadline while still making some videos on players that I find interesting. If you like this kind of format of video, remember to comment down below and comment down below recommendations. I'm always open to recommendations. So remember, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.